Alright, I'm going to give you a little lesson on how to install your strings on Kluson style 6-in-line tuners on a Fender style guitar. Today we have a 52 reissue Telecaster, and I'm restringing this with 1046 Debarios. So the tips and tricks I'm going to give you will work best on 1046. If you go with heavier gauge strings, their diameter is bigger, so it might change a little bit. But practice will make perfect. So basically these are a little finickier than your usual tuners because you have to pre-cut the string, put it in the tuner, and then wind up. So if you have too much string there, you can't really just loosen it up, pull a little more through, and wind again. You have to get it right the first time. So what you want, of course, is enough wraps around the post to create enough back angle behind the nut so that you don't have buzzing on open strings. But you don't want any overlaps so that when you bend, the knot tightens and the tuning drops. So the best way to do it, you put your strings in first. You'll need two tools, essential tools, string cutters, very expensive investment. I saw some for $4 at Canadian Tire, and a string winder, another considerable investment, $2.50 in a music store. So for a big $6.50, about the price of your strings, you can get your guitar strung right. The way you do it is that you measure your string prior to installing. I've already installed the low E here. And for, I'll give you the measurements for the low E right now. What you do is you place the string through the nut, give it some tension behind, and then from the E, count 3 tuners back. 1, 2, 3. So you're going to cut the string vis-a-vis the G string, or the G string post. Cut it there, put it in, wind it up. For the A string, you can put a little more string because it's a smaller diameter and it's further back. So you go back 4 tuners. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cut it vis-a-vis the high E tuner. Cut it there. You put the string into the post. You kink it down through that slot. Then you start winding up. What I do for winding is I'll put my thumb here, my index like this, and I'll hold some tension on the string. That way I can guide the string down the tuner as I wind it up. Now it's important that you don't kink the string in front or behind the nut. If you kink it in front of the nut, you're going to end up with buzzing between frets, and if you kink it behind the nut, well, you still have a fragile string that'll break prematurely. So we're winding it up, and there we go. We got a nice angle behind the nut, but we're not overlapping. I'll show you when we're done what it looks like when it's all installed. D string. On the vintage reissue Fenders, the D and the G are the most critical ones to get right because they have no string retainer, and the headstock has no angle. So you've got to create angle with the winding on the post. If you have too little angle, the string's going to vibrate behind the nut when you play it, and it'll sound like a sitar or something that is not a Telecaster or Stratocaster. For the D string, you're going to put a little more than for the A. So you imagine your 4th tuner would be here, the 5th one over there. There you go. So I have roughly, well, what do I have? I have 6 inches between the D tuner and the end of the string. Put it through, kink it in there, start winding, hold the tension with the thumb and the index finger. Of course, you can also have a drill-mounted winder. It works just as well. Just be careful to let go of that button when you get some tension, because I've had a few strings pop on me with drill-mounted winders. Almost there. And there we go. The D string is done, and it's almost all the way down to the bottom of the post. G string, the finickiest of them all. For the Telecaster, the strings are anchored almost flush with the back of the body, so you don't want to cut off as much as you would cut off for a Stratocaster, who actually goes into the tail block. On the Telecaster, you want to basically, very simple, you cut off 1.5 inches on a Telecaster. 1.5 inches off the G, and you put the whole thing on. This one's a little more, it's a little finicky to keep a grip on. Practice will make perfect. So there we go. So in any gauge of string where the plain G is unwound, it's always the finickiest string to set up, even in installing on the tuner, setting up at the nut, setting up at the bridge. It's It's the one that's the least forgiving. There we go, G string. And now, I'll give you a break. B string and E string, very simple. Just put the whole thing in. The B and E on any vintage reissue usually have a string retainer. I can't think of a vintage reissue that doesn't have a string retainer with B and E. So that already eliminates a lot of problems. And having enough windings around the post prevents the string from slipping when you're bending and dropping your tuning and frustrating you. There we go, B string. Now, since you're going to put the whole thing on the E string as well, I will spare you the torture of watching me wind another string. I'll just show you what this looks like when it's finished. So there you go. Come on, focus. So you can see that on the low E, all the way through the G, the angle the amount of winding increases, giving us angle behind the nut, which is what you want for these three since there's no string retainer. The B string, nice and clean, but that one has the string retainer to save you. So that is how you install strings on a 6-in-line Kluson style guitar with no angle on the headstock. And you can see that I put the strings through the post there, which is what you want to get a nice lock. So there you go. Keep practicing, you'll get it right.